Welcome to another episode of the Divorce Lawyers podcast, brought to you by DivorceLawyers.ca, Ontario's leading family and divorce law firm. I'm Deepa Taylor, and for today's episode, we're diving into a crucial and often complex topic, the role of business valuations in divorce. Whether you're a business owner facing a separation or a spouse seeking clarity on your rights, understanding how business valuations work is key to navigating this challenging time. Before we start, I want to remind our listeners that today's discussion is focused on the legal landscape in Ontario, Canada. The principles we discuss may vary in other jurisdictions. Let's begin by addressing a fundamental question. What is a business valuation, and why does it matter in the context of divorce? At its core, a business valuation is the process of determining the economic value of a business or a company. In divorce proceedings, this becomes critically important because in Ontario, the value of all family assets, including business interests, must be determined as of the date of separation. When one or both spouses own a business, the valuation of that business can significantly impact the division of assets. This valuation is essential for creating a fair and equitable settlement. But how do you go about valuing a business in the context of a divorce? That's what we're going to explore in depth today. First, let's discuss the different types of business valuations. There are generally three levels of valuation reports: calculation, estimate, and comprehensive. Each has its own scope, depth, and cost, and choosing the right one depends on the complexity of the business and the specific needs of the divorce process. A calculation report is the most basic, often used for planning purposes or where a quick, rough estimate is needed. It involves less analysis and fewer assumptions, making it more cost-effective but also less detailed. An estimate report is a middle ground option, providing a more thorough analysis than a calculation report. It's often used in less contentious cases where there's some agreement on the basic facts and figures. Finally, a comprehensive report is the most detailed and thorough. It involves extensive analysis, a deep dive into the company's financials, and often includes consideration of future cash flows, market conditions, and the potential for growth or decline. This type of report is usually necessary in complex cases, or when there's significant disagreement between the spouses. So, when would a business valuation be required in a divorce? The answer is anytime there is a business interest that needs to be divided as part of the marital property. Whether it's a small, family-run business or a larger corporation, the value of that business must be determined to ensure that both parties receive a fair share of the marital assets. Now, what happens if the business is essentially just one person? For example, a consultant or a tradesperson operating as a sole proprietor. In these cases, the concept of personal goodwill versus commercial goodwill becomes important. Personal goodwill is tied to the individual. It's the value that can't be separated from the person who runs the business. For example, if a dentist sells their practice, part of the value comes from the dentist's personal relationship with their patients. Once that dentist leaves, the value might decrease significantly, making it more challenging to assess the business's worth. On the other hand, commercial goodwill refers to the value that is transferable and independent of the owner. This might include things like brand reputation, a customer base, or intellectual property. Understanding the distinction between personal and commercial goodwill is crucial because it affects how the business is valued and ultimately how much of that value is considered marital property. Next, let's talk about some common challenges that arise during business valuations in divorce, particularly in today's uncertain economic climate. For instance, the impact of recent events, like the COVID-19 pandemic, can significantly affect the value of a business. Some businesses may have thrived, while others may have struggled. When valuating a business, it's essential to consider these factors and how they might influence future earnings. Another common challenge is the valuation of professional practices, such as law firms or medical practices, where the business's value is closely tied to the individual owner's personal reputation and client base. Here, we must be particularly careful to differentiate between what is marital property and what is personal goodwill. One crucial point I want to emphasize is the importance of using a qualified business valuator, preferably a chartered business valuator, CBV, who has experience with family law cases. a CBV can provide an independent, objective valuation that will hold up under scrutiny, whether in negotiations or in court. This is especially important because, as we discussed, the valuation process involves many assumptions and judgments, which can be contested by the other side. Speaking of contested valuations, it's not uncommon for two experts to arrive at different conclusions about the value of the same business. This can happen for a variety of reasons, such as differing assumptions about future cash flows, the selection of valuation methods, or the treatment of intangible assets like goodwill. In these situations, the court may order the experts to engage in what's known as hot tubbing, where they discuss their differences and try to reach a consensus. This process can help narrow the issues and lead to a more focused and efficient resolution. As we near the end of today's discussion, I want to share some practical tips for business owners and their spouses who are facing a divorce. First, if you own a business, it's vital to maintain clear and accurate financial records. This not only makes the valuation process smoother, but also ensures that your business is represented fairly in any negotiations or court proceedings. Second, be prepared for the possibility that your business will be scrutinized in ways it hasn't been before. This includes a thorough review of financial statements, tax returns, and any other relevant documents. Transparency is key, and hiding assets or income can backfire in a big way. Third, for spouses who don't own the business but are entitled to a share of its value, it's crucial to engage your own experts who can review the valuation report and ensure that your interests are protected. Don't simply accept the other side's valuation at face value. Have it independently reviewed. Finally, for both sides, remember that the goal is to reach a fair and equitable settlement. While business valuations can be contentious, they don't have to be a battleground. With the right professionals and a collaborative approach, it's possible to navigate this process smoothly and reach a resolution that works for everyone. That's all for today's episode on the role of business valuations in divorce. I hope you found this discussion insightful and that it helps you better understand this critical aspect of the divorce process. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please consult one of our family lawyers by visiting DivorceLawyers.ca. Remember, the information we discussed today is intended as general guidance and should not replace personalized legal advice. For specific legal issues, please consult with a qualified family lawyer. Thank you for tuning in to the Divorce Lawyers podcast. Until next time, take care and stay informed.